folks, I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Melody.
Welcome to Double Trouble. Today we're taking a look at Kingsburg. This is the new version of Kingsburg. This has, so if you've never played Kingsburg before, don't worry about it. I'm going to show you how to play the game in here. But Kingsburg originally had an expansion with it. This comes with everything from that expansion included in here, plus a little bit more. So there's a base game and some modules. Now, you played the original Kingsburg.
Yeah.
And now she's played this one. We're here to tell you what we think after we explain how to play it. The game takes place over 5 years. You're going to be keeping track of the different years up here, and each year is going to follow this path down here. Each year has 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter, although winter is basically just a fighting season. When you go to each season is going to take place the same way. Each player has 3 dice, and they're going to roll these 3 dice. You're going to look at the totals rolled. So let's say this is a 2-player game, and I'm not going to be playing a 2-player game. So green has rolled a total of 9, and red has rolled a total of 10. So green would go first, and red is going to go second. Now, what that means is, when it's your turn to go, you're going to place your dice on the board matching the numbers you've rolled. So green has rolled a 2, 3, and a 4. So green has the following choices. They can put a die on a 2, they can put a die on a 3, they can put a die on a 4, they could put the 2 and the 3 on a 5, they could put the 2 and the 4 on a 6, they could put the 3 and the 4 on a 7, or they could put the 2, 3, and 4 all together on the 9. Now, if someone's on the spot you already want to go to, then another player cannot go there. So the red player can't go to a certain spot. So you have to kind of take this into account when you're placing the dice. Now, after you're done placing your die, then the next person goes, and you go around, keep taking turns until everyone has placed all their dice. Then you get whatever it says. For example, this guy here gives a victory point, a gold, a wood, a gold or a wood. This guy gives you a soldier, which moves you on the track up here. This guy lets you change 1 good for the other 2, a good of your choice, plus 1 of these chips. These chips are useful because they can be added to a die that you play to make it +2. So if I can put this 4 here, and make it a 6 when I place it there. This guy gives you 2 gold, 2 different resources, 2 soldiers, and you can look at the bad guy who's about to attack secretly. 2 different resources, 2 resources of your choice, and a 2 chip, 3 stone. Trade a victory in for 3 resources of your choice, 3 different resources, 4 gold, 2 resources of your choice, 3 points, and look at the bad guy, and 1 of everything. After placing their things and getting the resources, players then can build 1 building. When you build a building, it's going to cost the resources it shows at the bottom. So for example here, the guard tower cost 1 gold and 1 stone. I pay those. I put a marker there to show that I had that building built. Each building gives a certain number of victory points and gives you a special ability. For example, this one here has +1 battle strength. There are 4 columns of buildings. You can only build a building in the second column if you built a preceding building, and so on and so forth. Although I don't have to continue on in that row, I could also build this building down here. But you can only build 1 building per turn. Now, the reason you are building all these buildings is to, get points. That's one of the main reasons, and to fight the bad guy. As I said, you're going to be moving this disc along here each year, and there's different seasons. In between seasons, there's special things. Like at the beginning of each year before spring, whoever has the fewest buildings is going to get an extra white die that they'll be able to use. At the end of the spring, whoever has the most buildings gets a victory point. Whoever has the fewest buildings gets this token, which you can use to put your die where somebody else already is, so you can both get the resource, or you can use it to build 2 buildings. And at the end of fall, you can pay any 2 resources to get another soldier. Now, why do you want soldiers? Well, at the end of every round, you're going to draw the top card. This card on the top of it shows you the possibilities. This one has a strength of 2 to 4. These guys are attacking you. You're going to roll a king's die. This is how many troops the king sends. You will add this to your soldiers that you have and to any buildings on your sheet that give you plus to battle. You'll reveal the bad guys. Here they are, orcs. If you are higher than 3 with your total, then you will get the reward at the bottom, the +1 gold. If you are lower, you'll lose this penalty at the top, lose 2 resources and a victory point. And if you're a tie, nothing happens. Also, whoever has the highest military strength gets a bonus point. These characters get stronger and stronger as time goes by. Sometimes they're even deadly, where they will destroy one of your buildings. And look at this guy here, will make you lose 8 victory points. And they just there's 1 for each year, and they're drawn from random piles. At the end of a year, you'll reset your soldiers. You get to keep your resources though, and then you'll just start over again. At the end of 5 years, whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. There are some modules included with the game. You can play with the module where you flip the board over, and instead of having 5 rows, you now have 7 different rows. This is a module that I always play with because I like having more variety. There's a module where you can have even more than that, where at the beginning of the game, each player gets 2 of these rows randomly. So for example, I have A and C, and then each player will decide whether they will use the A that's printed on the board, or they can put this row on there and use that row instead. So you have even more options, and you might be different than the other players. There's a module where each player will draw some cards at the beginning of the game, and keep one of them, and this basically gives you a special ability. Like this guy at the end of each year, he gets a gold. And at the end of year 4, he gets 2 gold. One person just starts with victory points. Some people have a special ability at the end of each productive season. If any player constructed no buildings during the current season, you gain a victory point. So you have these different characters. There's also event cards that can be played, which would kind of do a random event. I don't normally use these because they're a little swingy for me, but they exist. There's also a module in which each player will have some discs. They have 6 discs that are going to be used for combat. Instead of rolling the king's die and adding that to your soldiers, each player secretly picks one of these each round. So there's 5 years, and you have 6 discs at the end of the game. Whichever disc you didn't use is how many victory points you get. And then there's finally one module. This module is a new one that was not included in previous games, and that is you have these tokens here, and you shuffle them into a pile, and at the end of every season you draw one, and this will change what each player does. So I can put this one here, for example, the 4, and now 3 resources are placed on him. And at the beginning, whenever someone goes there, they get one of the resources. When he's empty, you refill him. Or 16, and this one changes the wizard from 4 gold to 5 victory points. Or this one changes number 15. Instead of getting 1 of each, there's 6 resources here. You take 4 and pick another player, and that player gets 2. You can also play a method where all these start on the board, and at the end of each season, you pull the highest one that was taken off the board. So these are just kind of changes to the main characters. There's also some scenario cards that come with the game. If you play with one of these scenarios, these were originally free to print on their website, these scenarios, but it just kind of gives you a different way to play the game, a different kind of setup and so on and so forth. There you go. So the artwork for the different people, they look firmly stern. Number 10 there looks a little bit like William Defoe. And it's pretty easy to tell what everything is, all the different pieces and stuff. The components for the game themselves, you know, the gold, the stone, the wood, they look suitably different. I'm not as much of a fan of the little tokens used in the building. They're kind of small. I know that they're needed to be that way. They're just okay. And the dice themselves, I actually don't like these dice. I know I think I'm alone in this. Most people have told me the dice look really cool. I just find them too busy myself. I find it a little hard to quickly read them as opposed to other dice. The tiles themselves are good. Realize that the boards are super thin. These boards, you know, That's no problem. But these are even thinner, and they just didn't punch out as well as I would have liked those thinner boards. Other than that, though, I mean, everything's fine. It has a little bit of a muted look to it, the whole thing. It's not quite as bright and colorful maybe as I would want, but overall the production is good, and they managed to fit the base game and the expansion in the box. Okay, so Kingsburg is a dice placement game where you roll dice and put them out, so there's some randomness involved, but you are able to kind of deal with that randomness. What did you think of the components, how the game looks?
I thought it looked nice. I like the dice in this one. I like the detail on it. My dad doesn't as much.
Yeah, I guess we're just differ on the dice, I guess.
But I do like how you try to roll dice, kind of manipulate your moves so you can put yours in the place that you want before other people can, and then get the resources to build buildings. I like how everyone has like a different path sometimes. Like when we played, everyone did like a different, like focused on a different row of buildings, which I thought was really cool. Yeah.
Maybe I should have focused on another row, but the game has the different rows of buildings, and just as a FYI, I always, even with newcomers, I will always play with the side with 7 different rows. Yeah. I guess it could be overwhelming, but it gives you just many more options on things to play with. So just as a quick note as this side, I always play with those. I'm always going to play with the discs. I'll come back to that in a second. And I'll always play with that new module where you change the people's powers. Because it's not that difficult. You only need to explain one each at the end of each season, the new one that comes up. And they're not that complex. But going back to what Melody says, I like having all the different rows. You can all follow your own strategy. You can even play with the optional module where you have 2 different rows than everybody else. And the game is really cool in that. But Melody also mentioned something that's a key to this game, and that's fairly interactive. I'm going to look at your dice and go, you have a 3 and 2 4s, and I have a 3 and 2 6s. Well, you can't stop me from going to the 12, probably.
But you can stop me from going to the 3.
I'm going to go on the 3 first. Now, sometimes that can come back to bite you because of those +2 chips. Mm-hmm. Or because there are some buildings that let you manipulate the die, like there's one that lets you go up or -1. Things like that.
Or like re-roll dice that are under 7.
Yeah, but you can really mess over somebody else.
Yes.
On purpose. So it's not that bad, right? And if you play with 2 players,
people are more focused on what they're doing themselves than actually mess up other people.
Usually. But if you're not sure, and it's not even so much, it's the defensive sometimes. You're like, wait a minute, if I don't place the 1 right now, Billy's going to take it because he has 2 1s and a 2. He's definitely going to take it. And I like that the game has always done a good job at, if you roll small, but at least you get to go first.
Yeah.
And then there are buildings you can build to mitigate that as time goes by. So what did you think of the new module where you added the things on?
I thought that was really cool. I did like how like the different abilities were changing. I like the part where you put them on first. Like you put them on, then take them off better, because that way you can see everything. And then one gets changed, then you usually don't care too much.
Well, all the new powers are very interactive. Mm-hmm. They're definitely, hey, I do this. There's 4 resources. You pick one, I get the other 3. So maybe even a little bit of negotiation. I'm like, hey, pick me. I'll take whatever resource you don't want. I don't care. I just want an extra resource.
Yeah.
That's out there. And there's even the Joker one I really like, because his ability is whatever the lowest number no one took, which is going to be at least a 2, but might be pretty high if everyone plays lower dice, which is a pretty neat idea.
Yeah.
So overall, the game plays fairly quickly, unless you play with someone who sits there and looks at everyone's dice and thinks you shouldn't play games with that person probably much at all. But I like the length of the game. It's like a 90-minute game, but it feels involved and such.
Yeah.
I've come around. I think when I reviewed the expansion years ago, I did not like those discs as much. I really am liking them now. They take away from the randomness of the king's role in battle, and you have to, it makes battle a much more fearsome thing. You have to sit there and make sure you have enough troops to do it. And you can save a disc and hopefully get some extra points at the end of the game, which might be the case, unless it was the last game we played, in which case I was like 40 points behind. But so overall, what do you think?
I really liked it. Like it was really fun. I would play again to try like different buildings and see if those help me. Because I basically went for the ones that are like all points, which was not too bad, but.
Right, but they don't give you any special abilities
Yeah.
really. And you can also go for buildings that give you lots of attack strength, so you never have to worry about a battle. And then you can just go and get resources and then build the buildings for points. It's an intriguing game. There's a lot of stuff going on. Kingsburg has been my favorite since it's come out. I think it's 10 years old now at this point. And this is a nice, good new addition. If you've never played it before, I highly recommend it. And it also comes with everything in the box. If you're curious, if you've played Kingsburg before, I'm doing a comparison video on the old and the new one. In another video, we'll talk about that there. But for now, what would you rate this game?
Probably like 8.5.
Yeah, same for me. 8.5, one of my favorite games, Kingsburg.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.